Welcome to the September 13th meeting of the Township Council. Ms. Marsh.
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
Amen. Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Dreese?
Present.
Mr. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Here.
Oh, yeah. We're all here.
Okay, we have a presentation this evening. So our flood resilience officer, Jennifer McCulloch, is going to give us a report to the council and to those that are here.
Hello, Jennifer.
To you, but I'll be able to see the screen too. Hi, how is everyone tonight?
Good, how are you, Jen?
Thank you for having me. So about once a year, I come and let you know what's going on in flood resilience world. I've been with the township about 5 years at this point, so I thought it might be helpful to look at where Pequannock and FEMA were back in 2018 and now, because there have been a lot of changes. So the topics we're going to go over tonight include flood insurance. FEMA has a brand new way of calculating flood insurance that's called Risk Rating 2.0, flood maps and our appeal of them. Home elevation grants, one of my favorite topics. The community rating system, which is taking on greater importance than it has before. Disaster response, which we're beefing up. And FEMA's new methodology that I want to make sure that we're all aware of. And lastly, the substantial damage management plan, which you all are aware of and have a resolution about tonight. So let's start with flood insurance. It used to be entirely map-based. The firm is the flood insurance rate map. Now FEMA has moved to Risk Rating 2.0 or RR 2.0, which is algorithm-based. So before, there were 4 factors. Now there are over 23 factors that are considered when determining flood insurance rates. In the past, one of the questions was, are you in or out of the floodplain? Then they looked at the base flood elevation, or the BFE, which is how high the flood waters get in a 100-year storm like Irene. Then they looked at the height of your structure in relation to that BFE. And finally, they looked at the foundation type of your home. And that was pretty much how they came up with the rates. Now, they don't look at whether you're in the floodplain at all. They don't even consider the BFE. What they're looking at are all the elements of the home and the flooding source. So they look at the height, size, style, and age of your structure, the proximity to the flooding source and the type of flooding that it is. They look at the replacement cost value, which takes into account how expensive things are in different areas of the country. They look at whether it's riverine or coastal flooding, and so on and so forth. In the past, residents could go to multiple agencies and try to get the best quote available. Now there's a universal quote. So they plug this data in, it runs through the algorithm, and out pops the quote, and that's that. In the past, there was something called a preferred risk policy. You might know it as a PRP. And that was for homes that were either outside the floodplain or had been elevated above the floodplain. And basically, those policies ran in the range of roughly $300 to $600 of a property. Oops, not sure what's going on there. Oh. There we go. Unfortunately, those policies don't exist anymore. So big changes on the flood insurance front. And once they decided to stop using the maps that way, it's kind of had a trickle-down effect. So again, we're comparing the flood insurance rate maps, or the FIRMs, of 2018. Now they're called FIMS, which doesn't quite have the same cachet. So they're just the flood insurance maps. They determine whether insurance is required. That's still the case. They determined the base flood elevation, and that was used to develop the insurance rates and also for new developments. The BFE is still used for, a newly built home on a vacant lot. And most importantly, they determine the flood insurance rate. Now the FIM has absolutely no effect on the actual flood insurance rate. So when I joined Pequannock, the map appeal had just been filed, so there really was no progress. I can say, after almost 5 years here and a lot of fighting with Adam and I, meeting with FEMA, I'm happy to say that the 230 homes that were put in the floodplains incorrectly will be taken out. So that's good news. Now, these next 3 points I was very excited to present to you this evening. And then I spoke to our FEMA rep this afternoon in the mapping division. And FEMA has decided that instead of releasing the P-firms in November as expected, they might want to go back and remap the floodway in the east-west ditch, which is kind of nonsensical to me because there aren't really any homes in the floodway there, and we don't allow development in the floodway, so I guess they're just trying to get a perfect map, but Adam and I will definitely be following up on this one. So hopefully we can stay as close to that schedule as possible.
And forgive one brief interruption, Jennifer. I just want to underscore what she just said. This was finalized by Ms. McCulloch on Friday.
Yeah.
And in a day and a half, 2 days of work since then, Lucy moved the football.
Right. Yeah.
I know the council and many people who've watched this, the universal frustration associated with bad maps to begin with back in 2017. But the process since then has been a lot of Lucy moving the football. So as challenging as it is, and it's been going on for 5 years and still hasn't, it's because Charlie Brown is having a tough time making contact.
Yeah.
So when this came up, we had a conversation about how to address it, and my comment was just be honest about it. She had a conversation with the gentleman from FEMA, and now all of a sudden there's an indeterminate wrench that's been thrown in the monkey work, the monkey wrench that's been thrown in the works, and we don't now know.
Yeah, they basically sent our maps to headquarters to get the final stamp of approval before they could be released, and headquarters came back and said, well, the mapping is so good in the floodplains, but it doesn't look very good in the floodway. I think we need to clean that up. And my frustration with FEMA has always been that, okay, that sounds nice at 30,000 feet, but you're affecting people's lives. These mandatory flood insurance requirements have a significant effect on the value of homes.
And wasn't it you that cleaned up their maps for them?
I personally didn't clean them up. They actually sourced it out to a very good consulting firm, but it's just unfortunate that they were done so badly.
I was under the impression that when we won the scientific appeal, they said, okay, tell us what's wrong with our maps, Pequannock. If you think they're wrong, you tell us what's wrong.
Right, yeah.
So, in a sense, we pretty much cleaned up their maps.
That's correct. And probably the craziest part of all of this is when we filed the SRP, FEMA said, oh, geez, you're gonna slow down the whole, map project in the county of Morris. Like, now you're messing up the timing of that. Well, the funny thing is, right up until this happened, our maps were actually due to be approved and finalized. So that just gives you an idea of how often the football, as Adam said, gets moved.
Yeah, and it's not just Pequannock doing this. It's Lincoln Park, Montville.
And there's nobody we can litigate this to? I mean, we just went through all of that for 4 years, and for them to go, oh, yeah.
Well, believe it or not, the only court of appeals is the federal court.
Okay.
So we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Well, especially since we're so close. That's the thing that was like the kicker, to be within a month and a half of them being released, and then to hear that they're like, well, maybe we'll try this.
Yeah, now they haven't even given you a new future date. They just said we need to.
Yeah. So that's why Adam and I need to follow up on this. So in the past, the best method to reduce insurance rates were all centered around the map. So you either tried to have them removed via a map appeal or a letter of map amendment, a LOMA or a LOMER, or you could have the BFE measured and send in your elevation certificate to make sure they were using the right numbers. Now, the best method to reduce insurance rates is actually to increase our insurance discount through the CRS program, which I'll go over later. So elevation grants, this has been an interesting journey as well. In 2018, it was entirely about the flood loss history of the property. Now it's all about what's called the Social Vulnerability Index. And given what a tongue twister it is, I hope you'll be okay with me saying SVI. So in 2018, there was almost 300 million in grant applications, which meant that we had about a 56% chance. Last year, there were 534 million in applications, so our chances dropped down to 30%. Again, the focus had been on flood loss history. Now the focus is on having a high SVI rating, and high is anything that's a 5 or above on a scale of 10. Pequannock Township scores a 3. So the focus previously is it a repetitive loss property or substantially damaged? For a high SVI community, that's not needed. We had to do very rigorous benefit cost analysis, showing that these projects made financial sense to FEMA. For SVI communities of 8 or above, there is no BCA requirement. That's waived. The cost share from FEMA was anywhere from 75 to 100%, depending on the flood losses. SVI communities of 5 or above automatically get 90%. There used to be just an open pool of funding with no earmarks. Now, it's a requirement that 40% of all funding has to go to a high SVI community. And that number could be higher than 40%. 40 is the floor. There used to be one round nationwide. Now there are 2 rounds. The high SVI communities go first, and whatever money is left over, the rest of us can go for. There used to be no limit on elevation costs as long as you met the benefit cost analysis requirement. Now there's a penalty where they take points away if your elevations cost over $250,000, which is the exact range that a town like Pequannock is. We live in a very expensive area of the country. In the past, elevations and acquisitions were seen equally as mitigation measures. Now elevations are considered less desirable mitigation measures, and I'll explain about that later. In 2018, Pequannock was this, small engine that could, they were this feisty contender, and now with our SVI of 3, we're seen as wealthy and privileged. So when I joined Pequannock, the 2015 grant had just been kicked off. So both of the grants that we had received were just starting. The good news is, we've received $20 million in funding from FEMA, which is really spectacular. We've elevated 36 homes, and there are 38 more homes in the pipeline right now. So, as you can see, a very changed world. So the community rating system is how we get flood insurance discounts for homeowners right now. When I joined, we were just holding steady at a Class 5. We're currently aggressively pursuing a Class 2. And to understand that, at a Class 5, homeowners get a 25% discount. And the beauty of this, I think of this as the land of the permanent insurance discount, because once you're a Class 5, as long as you maintain that, you will always have the 25% discount. They're not going to pull the rug out from under us the way they did with some of the other things. A Class 2 gets a 40% discount.
Sweet.
So the focus formerly was on flood mitigation measures. Now, for some reason, it's on the development of plans. They want all these plans, which is fine. We'll give them whatever they want. So the mitigation measures they focused on before were acquisitions, elevations, drainage and river maintenance, mapping, and floodplain ordinances. We've already started developing the plans that they're asking for, so we have the construction certification management plan, the substantial damage management plan, you'll be looking at tonight. The watershed master plan, we've been fortunate enough to get a full grant from the Army Corps of Engineers. They're going to help us develop it. It's a monster. You basically have to look at how our watershed reacts to every kind of rainfall event imaginable. Then there's the repetitive loss area analysis. I would love it if they came up with something that wasn't such a tongue twister just once. But that basically looks at how you would mitigate every single property individually. Again, it's a pretty difficult analysis to put together. We're also going to be developing an evacuation plan, and if you look, you can see 395 points. That's almost a class jump right there. And again, we have a grant from the Army Corps of Engineers, and they'll be helping us develop that. I'll be writing a flood insurance promotion plan and a program for public information, which is nice because it has a multiplier effect across the other categories. Now, you might have noticed the 2 stars next to the watershed master plan in the repetitive loss area analysis. So FEMA makes this very difficult because to move beyond a class 5, you have to have those 2 elements in place. And as I said, they're pretty heavy lifts. So just to give you an idea, in the entire country, I think there are only 4 or 5 class 2 communities. But I don't understand why we can't be one of them. So we're going to get those 2 in place. Just to give you an idea, the substantial damage management plan that I've written already puts us at a class 4, but we can't realize that until we have those other 2 plans in place. So disaster response. When I came here in 2018, what I saw was, somewhat reactive, and we're trying to be very proactive and plan ahead. So I don't know if you noticed on the last screen, for disaster response, there's 395 points available through the CRS, and when I got here, there were 0. Now we have 65, and we're aggressively moving to the 395. I've been working very closely with Jim Bonelli, who's our OEM manager, and I just can't say enough about him. He's absolutely fantastic, strategic, collaborative. He works hard. He gets it done. So thank you for hiring him. When I joined Pequannock, unfortunately, we had lost our certification as a storm-ready community. And one of the first things that Jim did was make sure we were recertified. There were no disaster prep exercises in place that I could see. So back in March of 2019, I organized a FEMA tabletop exercise simulating a hurricane. There were disaster response procedures for OEM and the police, but it was silent on other areas of the township. So now we are developing those plans, the substantial damage plan, the evacuation plan, the flood response plan. There were no automated flood warning systems in place, and that's something that the CRS program is really looking for. So, as you probably remember, the township has purchased a flood sensor, and when they finally finish that bridge near Stop and Shop, Dave Seidman is going to put it in the river, and we will have our own proprietary automatic flood sensor. And the cool thing about it is it's programmed to send alerts to the police department when the river hits certain levels. But more than that, we can watch it, and we're not relying on the USGS stream gauge data, which sometimes goes down in storms. In the same vein, the flood sensor will let the police know that it's time to send out NICSA alerts, and we'll work, through with them when those should be sent. And also the storm alerts that are automatically sent by the website, the storm notifications. And this was a great idea that Jim had, to use the fire sirens as flood sirens. So he's working to get a number of them up and running again, and we'll get that set up. So our last major flood event when I joined was 7 years prior. Knock on wood, it's been 11 years. Hopefully, it'll just continue down that path, but the goal is for us to be fully prepared if and when it comes. So to kind of wrap it all up, FEMA's new methodology seems to be social justice and resilience. And in Pequannock, I feel like it's the same. We serve our residents and we try to attract new residents. So these are the stated goals that FEMA gave to Congress. They want to instill equity in emergency management, which is programs for the socially vulnerable. I believe we serve all residents in the township. They would like to lead in climate resilience through mitigation, and they want to do that through acquisitions. Now, the reason they're shying away from elevations, and I'll get to that point in just a second, is they really don't want to be in the flood insurance business anymore. So they would rather see a home taken out than see it elevated, because the elevated home still needs to be insured. They've introduced a program called BRIC, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, and they are looking to do huge public work projects with that. And Pequannock will continue to mitigate through elevations, maintaining the river, disaster prep and planning, and increasing public outreach and education. They're looking to ensure the financial health of a ready FEMA, which I found very interesting. So as I said, they're looking to get out of the insurance business, and they've been offloading about $1 billion in flood insurance policies a year. So they've offloaded $6.3 billion in the past. They're looking to eliminate the flood insurance subsidies. I'm sure you're all aware of the flood insurance rates going up between 18 to 25% compounded until it gets to the full actuarial risk. And lastly, the price increases are expected to reduce the number of policies nationwide pretty dramatically. Although not as dramatically as in my original slide that said, by the end of the year. It's actually by the year 2030, so I apologize for that. But they estimate that 1 million policies will be dropped by then, which is 20%. We're looking to ensure the financial health of our residents by permanently reducing the flood insurance costs. And as I said, I think the key to that is the CRS program. We'll continue to do elevations, and we'll correct those flood insurance maps. So does anyone have any questions about Flood World?
I have a question. So the 230 homes that may be coming out of the flood maps, is there really a benefit now if they're not using flood maps?
Because right now there's mandatory flood insurance for those homes, which is the thing that really knocks down the value.
But if they're not going to be using the flood maps?
They don't use the flood maps to create the rate, but the requirement to get flood insurance is what the map determines.
It's the lending institution.
Right.
That demands it.
And Jan, you said we're going to continue to elevate homes, so although they don't encourage elevation and they want,
Well, they just...
they still
encourage.
and it's just going to be harder to get the...
It's just going to be harder, but, I think we'll continue to have robust applications. I think Adam talked to you about last year.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing that the township has done so well mitigating that we weren't as affected by Ida. So understandably, more of the communities that were hit by Ida receive funding.
Well, great job.
Oh, thank you. I just have the one last thing, the substantial damage management plan. I'll be quick. So substantial damage is when structural damage repair is equal to or 50% of the home's market value. So what the plan does is identify properties that are at risk, It creates the substantial damage teams that do the inspections and notifications and issue the permits. We created a database that's pre-populated, so we only need to put the field data in, and then we can run it through FEMA's SD estimator. We've developed procedures so the residents know exactly what's going on before and after the event. We've looked at community actions to mitigate the properties, so we can answer any of the residents' questions about that. We have template documents for everything imaginable, including press releases. So we just input the addresses and names, and they're ready to go. The inspection materials will be ready to go, and you might say, why is this important? So, post a major flood, one of the most critical things to do is determine whether or not houses are safe or not for people to move back in. And if they're not, they need to know that sooner so they can arrange for long-term housing and find a contractor, et cetera. So what this plan does is allow these inspections and notifications to take place. And since we have 1,100 homes in the floodplains, that's a lot of homes for us to review. And it put us in a class 4. So, any questions about this? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Not only Jim Benelli, but, Jennifer.
Yourself, yes.
Yeah, fantastic work.
Yeah,
So,
great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Don't go
Thank you
anywhere.
so much.
Yeah. You can leave tonight. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to Jennifer and note that successful organizations attract and retain really talented people, and that helps make them successful. Jennifer is a fantastic example of that. So we appreciate her efforts.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on with the agenda. Next, I'm going to ask for reports from our volunteers. Are there any reports from any of our volunteers? Come on, Joe, come on up and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Wells, 5 Washington Street, Pompton Plains. My report is from the Open Space Committee and involves the rail trail. One of the things that many of the members of the council, and obviously Adam, remember that we had discussion on different areas of the trail, its openings and so forth. But progress has come and things change. I do have a copy of the latest, Adam, if there's enough for yourself and the council. The current construction schedule, and just to go back historically, originally the engineering department was dealing with the plans and how we would have the trail operate in the town, what areas there would be access to, and other factors. Currently, we're in construction, and during the contract scenario, the engineering department decided that they would allow the contractor to schedule the work as he felt was in the best interest of his construction. So, to the delight of many people, they took the easiest course and did the construction in town here, which basically, except for one area, is pretty much the easiest part of the trail. It's pretty straightforward. We have some tree cutting that has to happen. And in that schedule that I gave you, there's some short-term things within a few months that we have to do. There's one that is major, and that is we have to reinforce the bank of the Pequannock River near River Road and the rail trail. That's a substantial item, but it is very possible that in months the trail could be completed from the turnpike to basically Route 23. The section that requires the reinforcement of the bank is very close to River Road. Anyway, the two things I'd like to discuss with the council, and this was a request of the committee, that we readdress access to Aquatic Park. As you all remember, the reason we didn't pursue that, we felt that there was a possibility that would retard the progress or the beginning of construction. And the council chose not to pursue pursue that at that time. At this time, obviously, construction has started, and in fact, in many cases, you'll see the percentages of completion that the Morris County Engineering feels that 80 or 90% of the trail is done in many sections of the town. So I would request that the council activate interest in getting access to Aquatic Park. The only access to the park, as some of you know, is from the trail. You can't access it from River Road unless you go on the rail trail. You can't access it any other way unless you cross the rail trail. So I'd like to get together with Adam and go over some avenues that we could pursue there. The second avenue that I'd like to ask the council to take into consideration is to request a safe opening of the trail in the area from the Turnpike to Route 23 in Pequannock, as the rest of the projects are quite substantial. Rebuilding of a steel bridge over the river at Riverside and Hall Road going into Passaic County. An elevated concrete boardwalk that goes through a wetland area, a major project, and a steel bridge that has to cross a creek in Wayne, and additionally crossing an active rail section in Wayne before we get to the 202 area. So those things are going to take a substantial amount of time. I just think that there's a lot of pressure from citizens. We have people asking what's going to happen, and I do feel that unintentionally or whatever, there's going to be usage of it, and unless it's safe for everybody, the road signs, traffic signals for the bicyclists and so forth, the signage that's necessary to make it safe, I wouldn't want it to be open, but I'd like to see that we show an interest to the County Parks Department and Engineering, that we're interested in opening the Pequannock section prior to the rest of it being completed, if that's your wish. Any questions?
Joe, the reason why to get in Aquatic Park is an issue is because on the rail trail, there's fencing on both sides. So unlike now, where you could just kind of go in and out, once they finish the fencing, you have no way of getting into Aquatic Park. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's where the issue lies.
The fencing, there's two fences. There's one that's left from the railroad when it was a thorium transfer station. That fence has been opened. And in discussions prior manager and myself, and also people there felt that it wasn't a problem to create that opening. But unless the council was interested in it, what happened is, I don't think the technicalities involved are difficult. It's the fact, is there a will from the council that they want entrance to Aquatic Park? And at the time, and I see the validity of it, there was a fear that it would delay something that's taken many decades to get started.
Yeah, I think we all wanted it, but we knew it would hold it up.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with that.
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't think it would, but you felt it would, and you have that authority that
Right.
I don't. The thing is that the construction is not just started, it's virtually completed in many areas. So I think pursuing the entrance to Aquatic Park would not cause any negative issue at this. That's my opinion. And it would require further review with Adam and the rest of the council. I just want to convey that that's something I think that's important. The other part I think that is important is we've waited so long for the trail, over many, many decades, that here we have a completion in our town, and do we want to wait for another year or longer for the completion of the rest of the trail? And we could pursue that. There's a twofold thing here. The contractor is one factor. The engineering department is responsible for the construction, and then the actual maintenance and control is the county parks department. It's going to be a county park. So we need to review that with them, but it has to be the will of the council, not my interest.
Yeah, and if I may, if I recall the discussion that happened some time ago on this subject, and I'm going purely off recollection, I'd have to confirm with my notes, but my recollection is accurate. I believe it was the request of the county engineering department to get it done, and then to address the issues. And while I appreciate that this section is going to be done, the entire site remains under the auspices of the contractor until the contract is completed. So while it may seem logical from Pequannock Township's perspective to maybe make a request now, it still would result in a change order and we can't touch the site. So if my recollection is accurate from what the county's response was let's get it done and then we'll take a look at this. I'd have to go back and confirm that, but obviously if the council would like to make a request, it can absolutely be relayed to Morris County Engineering, which would then have to confer with the Park Commission.
I guess we could ask the question.
Yeah, I think that it's a request. We showed no interest in it before. And I think the county responded that way. If we show interest, I think that I take Adam's point into view, that maybe it can't be done right now, but I think we have to show that it's a very important fact. I don't know if we all agree on that, but I think having this trail running right within 20 feet of Aquatic Park and it being the only way to get to it, I think we have to make it clear to the county that we want to pursue that. The contractual situation is absolutely correct, but unless we make it known that our interest is there, and our interest also is in opening the trail beforehand. If they tell us they can't do it, I have no problem with that, but I think it would be something that would be a benefit to the people in town. The sooner we open it, the better it is. Any other questions on that?
Where's the closest opening to Aquatic Park?
There is none, talking about on the rail trail or any?
On the rail trail.
Right by the overpass on 23rd.
Right, but yeah. So it's not that far away from it,
What is that?
with the opening.
Yeah, but the opening there is an opening from the jug handle to the trail.
Okay,
And there's going to be a gate going into the leaf depository.
okay.
It's all fenced off now.
The problem with that is that I don't think it's a great thing for people to walk through the leaf depository to get to Aquatic Park. Having a small gate opening, I don't know. Well, Ryan, do you know where the water tower, the marker for the whistle stop is on the trail? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
That would be the ideal spot to, within a short distance of that. It takes people past the leaf depository on the south side of the river and adjoins paths that are already there.
And our long-term goal is really to connect all of our walks, whether it's the river walk, whether it's the rail trail,
Right.
even have the ability to direct people up to Mountainside Park. I mean, that's the overall goal of what we're doing, and this is just...
Yeah, but this isn't
Ask the
our
question.
doing, this is Morris County.
Yeah, but there is now 2 fences on each side where there was no fences before.
But I thought that they knew that once it was done, because they had said, once it's done, then we reevaluate where we want to do stuff.
And I think
The
that...
council never indicated that they wanted an access to Aquatic Park, to the county.
I thought we did, because didn't we send a letter and we asked
Yeah,
for
we
like
asked,
20 things?
and they said, let us just,
I don't, I'd
My
love to...
recollection is the request was made,
The
and
request
the
was
answer
made.
was, let's get it done first.
Right.
Exactly.
And then let's deal with it. And my interpretation of that from a contract administration perspective in my own right was, we'll get it done, and then if you want it, they'll come to us and say, you pay for it. That's what I suspect.
Yeah, it's very simple.
In which case, a recommendation of use of open space fund might be a great use of a couple local dollars.
Right.
Right.
I don't see that as being an impervious barrier, but I
We
might
just need to
You
get...
just don't want to do
my
it.
spidey sense of public service led me to that kind of conclusion.
But I remember that there was
It
a
was
bunch of
mentioned.
things.
We did express
It was.
an
We
interest.
did express an interest.
Yeah, well, the council, the county, some of the people I talked to there didn't feel that it was that important. So I don't know I'd love to review that letter myself just to see what.
I don't think it was a letter, it was a conversation, but somewhere I have notes.
Right. But anyway, the other part of it is, if you want to pursue a request for opening, again, I take Adam's point that it would be up to the contractor, it would be up to the county and the engineering, but it's something that I don't think there's any negative for any of us to make a request like that. I think that's something that would be a benefit to the town, and if they say no, okay, but the requests are all I'm asking for.
You're talking about opening for use,
Yeah.
right, so this.
It's going to be used. There's people using it now.
People are using it already, you just have to make sure it's
Open the
safe.
fence.
Adam, I
I think-
presume that would be a contract thing? right?
Yeah, I think, whatever the council's request that they would like to make would be fine. I think the issue with people using it without permission is one thing where there's a certain level.
I think that's a safety
risk that
Especially when there's
but
already
the individual
barrier
takes a
around.
risk unto him or herself. I think if we have a situation where we make a request, for them to say yes, it would require a level of insurance indemnification and challenge that I don't
Well,
think.
I also presume it's going to be structured based on the contract. So if the contract talks about, opening it at certain points.
That's one thing.
When you have a construction contract, for the duration of the construction contract, that site belongs to the contractor.
Right.
So if something happens, that contractor owns it. I've never experienced a situation where there's a construction project and prior to it being done, it was released back for use. It's similar to a certificate of occupancy in a home. You can't build it part of the way and then get the CO.
Right.
TCO.
Because
There's a little difference, I beg to differ slightly. We're in another town, another county, and there are some differences that would make it possible. The thing that I'm asking very simply, we could talk to, make it known what you would want. If you don't want it, you can tell me tonight that you're not interested in doing that, but I think the contractor is likely to be putting the proper signage and other things that would make it possible to complete it, and it would behoove him to have the Pequannock section completely done before he moves on to some of the other areas. He's already got his equipment here, he's got a lot of work done. He's going to in October, just next month, he's going to restart paving and cutting trees and so forth. So it might be a perfectly safe, usable situation, and well, in any event, I've
Okay.
told you what my
Thank you.
feelings are. You decide.
can ask
Be more than happy to review anything with you. There are other areas that I would like to talk about, but I think we've discussed it long enough for tonight. So that's it for me, unless you have any other questions.
Nope.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joe.
if the council would like, I would be happy to reach out to the county to see if it's a viable option.
What your feel is that? If they say no, it's no.
Okay.
And that's all I want, is feelers out. Ask the question, and they'll either say no or tell you what you have to do.
Right, and then I'll bring a response back publicly.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else have a report from volunteers serving the community? Doug?
Doug Cook, 123 West End Avenue, Pompton Plains, New Jersey. A couple months ago, I realized that we have never addressed you people, Community Partners of Hope, and told you who you are, what we do, etc. So I thought I'd do a very quick, brief update for you. Lincoln Park in Pequannock has about 10 churches and virtually all the service organizations as part of Community Partners for Hope. Our flagship program is the Grains of Hope food packaging event. We all know this started across the street at the First Reformed Church. Kathleen got it so that her congregation worked together on something, get to know each other. When her assistant pastor, our outreach pastor, left, she knew she needed to do something with us. So we had a meeting, and she decided the only way Grains of Hope would become bigger is if an organization other than a single service organization or house of worship ran it. So I took it over. For 2 years, it was Rotary. Then it was turned over to Community Partners for Hope. Last year, during the Ukrainian crisis, we held 2 food packaging events. We packaged 191,000 meals, shipped them to Poland. Overall, since we started this, between what we've done here in this little town of Pequannock and Lincoln Park, and also we put them on for other towns. I've done Parsippany High School, we've done Bergen Catholic, we've done Church of Latter-day Saints, but we now total 1,700,000 and over 50,000 meals over an idea that started right here in this town.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
I don't mean to interrupt you. That's just amazing, those numbers.
Yes.
Good job.
We're going to hit 2 million, okay?
Yes, you are.
What happens is each one of those events cost about $30,000, and only because of the generous outgiving of the people of Pequannock, Lincoln Park, and Wayne is now joining us, are we able to continue to put these on. Our plans are this year, we're going to do 2 80,000 meal events, one here in Pequannock. I'm trying to get the middle school now, and we'll do one in Lincoln Park, because I can always get their PAL building. But that's where we are as of today. What else we're doing is on October 2nd, at the high school football field, we are putting on our 2nd annual welfare health event. We have joining us then Hope One. Hope One will do Narcan training. Last year we had 33 adults. You have to be 18 years old to get the training. We had 33 adults take the training and get Narcan kits to take them home. Hope One is coming again this year. I confirmed it with Sheriff Cannon this morning. Navigating Hope is a new group in the state, and it really has most of the money. It deals with the social service side of all this. In addition to that, we have the president of New Jersey, NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, will be here and will speak. In addition to that, I think Newbridge is joining us. I've offered it to Chilton. I don't know whether they're coming or not. But that's October 2nd. It's only from 12 to 2, so it doesn't take you that much time. Mentioned that we're doing two 80,000 meal food packaging event. Something I'm very proud of, and everyone sitting up there should be very proud of, is the celebration of Hope and Light tree lighting ceremony. It's a tribute to Adam and our DPW and the fact that they opened their arms when we said we wanted to do something. What happened was 3 years ago, I think the town had its normal tree lighting ceremony. Facebook lit up better than the tree did, with people complaining that this town does not have a good tree lighting ceremony. I called Dave. I said, Dave, this town deserves more than that. Think about Quilting for a Cause. Think of Grains of Hope and all that. This is a great town. So I asked Dave, what do we have to do to make it better? Well, first I contacted Kathleen, because it is an ecumenical event, and she jumped at the idea of someone else helping. Then I called Adam, okay? I had a meeting with Adam, and I said, what is it we have to do? And he said, you have to speak to DPW. Dave Seitling knew exactly what he wanted to do. So Kathleen, Adam, and myself and Dave met out there. We laid the whole thing out, and the town gave us a price of what it would cost to do it. It's important to note, anyone who watches this later, not a penny of town money has ever been spent on this, okay? We raised the money ourselves. First year it was over $25,000, over $20,000. Last year about $15,000. This year it's going to be about $5,000 to $7,000. I haven't started raising money yet. We already have commitments from Hope One. We're going to do something that's really neat this year, and I'll tell you about it another day. We have Hope One coming. We have the trackless train I've already hired. We have the ice carver. We all should be ice carvers. They make a lot of money for a couple hours. But they're all committed. Our first meeting is next Monday. Our committee meeting is next Monday, and everyone that was part of it last year wants to be part of this again.
Awesome.
But that's who we are, okay? And I thank all of you for what you do. I could really do that.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for leading our charge. Thank you, Doug. Good job. All right, anybody else, volunteers? Any committee reports? No? All right, moving on. We're going to move on to public comment. And this public comment period is limited to 30 minutes. And if it goes beyond that, there's another spot for public comment at the end. So I ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes. So if anyone wishes to address the council, just raise your hand. I'll call you up and state your name and address for the record. Anybody? Come on up.
Hi, Bonnie Hurd, 6 Cameron, Hampton Plains. I have a concern about the golf station with the change of use that they're going through to add a deli. When I moved into Pequannock, okay, there's a deli on the corner. The traffic there between 6 and 8:30, I cannot get out of my driveway. It's parked on Cameron, it's parked in the front of the deli. My concern is that the people living on Park is going to have the same problem. So that's just a concern for other people that I'm going through. I also have a concern with the lights. I'm 1 block away, and since those trees were removed by the golf station, those lights at the top of the golf station comes right into my family room and the kitchen. So it's very annoying. Don't know if you can do anything about it, but that's my concern. The other concern, which is a little different, is the lane behind us, which is the 26-wide lane that was owned by the township, that was divided in half. So we get half, and the golf station gets half, because they own the property behind us. So my question is, why isn't 13 feet enough for their driveway when some of the council people don't even have 13 feet wide for their driveway? Why they have to take part of my 13 feet to park their cars? So my understanding was when that lane was divided, the 26 feet, they got 13, we got 13. So, but it's not happening. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I was going to say, before anyone else comes up, I don't know if the town manager or the lawyer wants to comment at all, but, and I have talked to some of you. As you know, the council has nothing to do with that, with the Board of Adjustment. We can't influence them, we can't talk to them. I'm assuming you're all going to the Board of Adjustment meeting to address your concerns. But, that's where the applicant will go for their relief and for, their request for a relief on their variance or get a variance. So I don't know if anybody else wants to
Mayor, just to amplify your comment on that, not only do we not have the authority to interfere, we can actually make it worse by starting to talk about this issue, because we can give support to somebody who says we tried to influence the Board of Adjustment. It's very important that the Board of Adjustment is able to objectively review their application. They will hear your comments, and they need to take your comments into consideration, but they need to objectively review the application. So we're going to be really careful that up here we don't say anything that makes their potential challenge, if they are denied, more viable. So we're going to be very careful to stay out of it. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we will do. And there will be an opportunity to be heard there. So we will not address the merits of that application. I'm sure there are issues. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure there are issues. The Board of Adjustment does have, as part of their process and procedure, an ability for members of the public to raise their concerns. And it's part of their responsibility to listen to that and factor that into their determination. So we're going to let them do their job. We did have a role, and did have a role in the vacation of the road, and that's a finished item. We had a recommendation from our engineer to vacate the road because, frankly, it did not appear to be the kind of thing that would ever be an appropriate township, turn into a township road. So when you say we own it, we had rights to it, and by vacating those rights, we no longer do. By operation of law, the idea of it divides in half between the two sides is what happens to fee title to it. There may be private rights; those can be debated. We can't straighten that out and figure that out here. And in terms of how that has to do with the application before the board, we would have to let the board address that first. Okay. So I think that just
yeah. Yeah, that pretty much covers it, and it's fine. You can make your comments here, we can listen to them, but I encourage you all to go to the Board of Adjustment meeting. You can consider this your drive-on.
But just for,
Yeah, we wanted to go there, but we were told that it was okay to come here.
Well, it certainly is okay, yeah, anybody can come here and anybody can speak. From our perspective, I'm going to advise the council not to respond to it because we don't want to make, we can make things worse. And I'd really prefer you not say too many inflammatory things here because this is all recorded. It becomes, and in other applications, applicants have said they have not gotten a fair shake before the board because people came out and tried to influence the council. We wouldn't want that to, we would never allow that to happen to be influenced, but we wouldn't want to see that kind of a record here. Okay.
If I could just amplify Mr. Oostdike's comments, a lot of what I try to do is explain how goofy government works, because government is a goofy thing. The Township Council adopted an ordinance that doesn't permit things in certain zones, and it permits things in certain zones. So the governing body adopts the law. The role of the Board of Adjustment, as articulated in state statute, is to hear applications for relief from that law. So it's a quasi-judicial body that's supposed to function, as Mr. Oostdike said, as an independent body to determine, based upon a public hearing and criteria, and you're going to hear a lot about positive and negative criteria and planning speak and lots of stuff, to determine whether or not the Board of Adjustment should grant that relief. And participation from the public is welcomed. And the public actually has an opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses who provide testimony on behalf of the applicant. So just as we saw in Perry Mason, you're welcome to get up and ask whatever questions you want of those witnesses who are providing testimony to the Board of Adjustment. So the public does have a very active role should it choose to exercise it in those hearings. But again, the law is made here. It shifts if someone wants relief to that other body, which is another reason why the folks up on the dais can't really engage in that. So just to provide...
Suggest that we...
we can't talk because you got to get it to Mike, but you're welcome to do that next. But that's, I just try to explain, that's the goofy government thing. And to someone who's just an interested party, it may not be information you're privy to. And that's the goal of what I try to do, is explain how some of the goofy stuff works.
So we just wanted to let you know why we can't respond to it.
Yeah, well, I think you told me that when I spoke to you earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Is it all right?
Sure. If you would like to come up, just come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Beverly Pissarro, 414 North Pumpton Turnpike, Pumpton Plains. I happen to live right across the street from the Gulf Station. The house was built in 200 years ago, almost 1830, and we've lived here for, since 1969, for 53 years, and we love living there, even though we're right across from the gas station. When we moved here, the gas station was here. It was a house with an apartment, a gas station with an apartment above it. There was a ranch house on the property. And then in 2 years, it was sold to Schottmeyer, and then a gas station was built. And it's basically the same building, except it's much more elaborate now, with the lighting, et cetera. So that's why I was really here, because, I've really loved the town, and I've been here such a long time. But I'm kind of concerned about, our property value. What's going to happen if a convenience store and deli comes in there? I mean, I know even a gas station sometimes brings your property value down, but I'm wondering about that, what that's going to do to that. And the traffic, too, is always a problem, and the lighting. For me, living so close to the road, the lights are really a problem, and I've spoken to them over the Board of Adjustment and the zoning and whatnot, and they said that the lighting is okay, it's been checked, but not shining through my windows, and even their orange Gulf sign shows reflection, on the floor in my house. I have wood floors. So since I'm so close to the road, it really does affect me a lot. I'm just worried about the deli. There's, with all the traffic and the kids on bikes coming home from school, a lot of traffic. I have a hard time getting out of my driveway during school hours and lunchtime and 5 o'clock. So I think, the town has grown a lot more cars on the road, and with the light right on that next corner, things do back up quite a bit. So that's really the concerns. I talked to them over at the Board of Adjustment also. I said, there's no mechanical work being done there because they never had any intention of doing it, because I went over and talked to them when they first finished, and I was trying to be a good neighbor, and they said, well, we're not going to be doing any mechanical work. So I thought, well, something's got to go. I don't know what, and now, of course, I know what they're planning. I'm just kind of concerned about that, and I just wanted to, make my voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, one more thing. There's a lot of cars parked there, but there's no mechanical work being done. And there's a tow truck there almost every night, because I've been writing it down from beginning of August when we had that first meeting that was canceled. And yet, some of them don't have license plates either, so I don't know. They were going to check that out. They said they were going to send the zoning person over to check it, but I notice it's still happening, and I don't know what the law is and what the code is on that. I know it used to be you couldn't have a tow truck overnight. Maybe it's changed. And having vehicles out there with no plates, or maybe one plate on the front and not the back. I know New Jersey, you need plates on front and back, right? But anyway, so that's basically it. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, in the back.
Hello, neighbors. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Potenza, and I live at 435 Turnpike. And like my neighbors, I'm very concerned about the change in use, because the master plan that we worked so hard on specifically said that you would not approve this expanded use on page 36. I don't know how the master plan fits into what you all do. Is that just a recommendation? It's a mixed use property. It was kind of grandfathered in. It's non-conforming to change it from a gas station repair shop to a convenience store. And I share all the concerns about traffic and cars and parking, because that's what's going to happen. It's going to bring more traffic. And the lights, you could do shadow puppets on their house. It's so bright. It's like floodlights. I can't believe that that falls into a category that's acceptable, and that's my concern. Can you explain to me what the master plan influence is going to be on such a decision?
So with the township attorney's permission, I'll just reiterate, your comments would be wonderfully received at the
We'll
Board
be
of
there too.
Adjustment. But it's not an issue for the council to discuss or debate.
Okay.
The master plan is a policy document that's adopted by the planning board that makes recommendations with respect to a number of elements that are found within the master plan, which you read from is from the land use element.
Okay.
And one of the requirements, if an applicant were to make an application to the Board of Adjustment for a change of use or a D1 variance under the municipal land use law, would be to address things like exactly what you're asking.
So take it then. Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I can amplify that, if anybody wants to call me with questions during business hours, I'd be happy to do my best to answer any questions in advance of this, just so you're as best prepared and
I
most
live on the
informed
turnpike too.
citizen
I don't
as
want
possible.
it to be expanded commercially.
Right.
You know,
My point is,
that's my concern.
I'm not going to weigh in on, I don't have a position, and just as the council members can't get involved, I can't get involved either with the Board of Adjustment's deliberations. However, I would be happy to explain the municipal land use law, the process, the procedures, how these things intersect, so you are an informed citizen and you can best approach the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, Joe.
Joe Wells, 5 Washington Street. I have a question that hopefully Adam can educate myself and possibly the people here. The person going to the Board of Adjustment as opposed to the Planning Board is because the use is not in the ordinance at this current time that he's requesting.
The applicant has made a request for a D1 under the municipal land use law use variance, which is a change of use to a use which is not permitted in the zoning.
Right, so the use is up, he has to prove a need for that variance.
Under the municipal land use law, which is NJSA 4055, there's specifically articulated criteria that must be satisfied at a public hearing, and the role of the Board of Adjustment is to serve, in essence, as the judge,
right,
and determine determine through vote whether they believe the applicant has satisfied that criteria and the relief should be granted, or if they have not and it should be denied. And there are both positive and negative criteria based upon the master plan and a number of other factors.
Correct, thank you. That helps me understand, and hopefully people understand also, that that's the best avenue for them at this point in time. One other question, is there any suggestion to best equip them to, they've got a petition with plus over 170 names that are against this action. They obviously have spoken to many on the council. As a citizen that understands that there's a lot of residents that are against this, what is our best avenue? What's the best relief? Should we bring an attorney? Should we represent ourselves alone? Is there any suggestion in that for citizens to best operate in that environment, like you just said, where the Board of Adjustment is making a decision?
Yeah.
Is that a question you can answer? And if not, I understand.
It isn't. We want to be very, very careful about giving advice as to how
All right,
to handle. All we're going to say is the Board of Adjustment is obligated and will want to hear from people that have an interest. The council has already spoken on the issue by adopting a zoning ordinance which does not allow this use. So the council can do no more than what it has already done in terms of saying that that use is not suitable for that zone. There are abilities to have special exceptions from that. That's what the Board of Adjustment has to determine, and we'll let them do that. And I don't think we would get in a position of advising how to be there. I think the Board of Adjustment will listen.
No, but I'm just saying, where would I get advice? Or where would these people get advice? If you can't, and I understand your particular issue that you have, but what I'm saying is, where could we go? What would a citizen do if he goes to the council and they can't help him? What is his next?
I would recommend contacting me, and I'd be happy to explain to the best of my abilities the process so you can be prepared.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. All right, anyone else? We're good? All right, thank you, and thank you for your comments. Okay, there being no additional public comments, we will continue on with the agenda, and we will go on to the manager's report when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. One quick item not identified in my written report. We were advised that the paving we were seeking to have completed sometime this summer by the Morris County Co-op's vendor will be hopefully initiated beginning tomorrow. They had an opening in the schedule. We wanted to get it done before school. Candidly, that would have been optimal, but it didn't come to fruition. That said, we want to get it done before things get cold, because paving in cold is not as effective as paving in warm. So they had an opening beginning tomorrow. There will be milling operations on Robert Place, Edward Avenue, on the 15th Banta Avenue, the 16th Peck Avenue, and Prospect Avenue. This information is available on the township's website. It's the lead story. And then paving operations will be the 20th and 21st. So just a heads up to everybody that that's moving forward. And again, all this information is currently posted on the township's website. Any questions, please direct to the township engineer. His information is included as well. With respect to my written report, first item is a follow-up from the last meeting. There was a conversation brought up by a resident at the podium regarding the water fountain at Greenview Park closest in proximity to the playground and the fact that it was out of operations. Following the last council meeting, I reached out to Public Works leadership, who said, "Oh, we're getting ready to remove that." Okay. And I said, "Hold." It's my understanding that at least 3 instances it's been the subject of vandalism this summer and is regularly vandalized, and as a result, the staff was going to remove it. I don't know if that's the best decision. I'm going to have some options that I'd like to discuss with the Public Works staff, but I wanted to get back to the council. That's why it didn't work. It's through no fault of us. I don't want to simply remove it with no plan of either where to go or what to replace it with, but I did want to get back to the council and the public to explain that's what the issue was, and we're going to hold fast on its a hasty departure.
Adam, can you clarify a little more on the vandalism? Because that is a brutish, water fountain. And it's new.
There are rocks and other objects that are jammed into the mechanisms that operate it. It's unfortunately not accidental. It is obviously intentional to cause it to not.
When it's working, a ton of people use it, including myself. And it's a beautiful piece. It's definitely not an inexpensive piece, and it looks like it will.
It fills water bottles. Right? You can drink out of it. Yeah, it's a really great improvement that was put in for good reason. So I'd hate to see it disappear for no reason.
Especially with the new tennis courts that are going to be over there.
Do we still have other vandalism going on at the parks? Maybe it's time to put cameras there too?
Something we can explore. Second item, there was another resident at the podium who brought up an issue of a sidewalk, damage to a sidewalk that the township created when we removed a tree. That damage has since been repaired. Next item, this evening we have an ordinance to close the recreation utility for public hearing and potential adoption. I bring that to the council with great reverie. The difference really between a recreation utility and a recreation trust is flexibility. Recreation utility requires an independent audit. There are significant challenges in terms of operation that limit flexibility for the staff. With the rec trust, which we've been operating on since January 1st of 2021, it's shown much greater flexibility, but there's still accountability and there's still a lot of things that the staff have to do. It's not that it's willy-nilly. So with great glee, I look forward to the potential adoption of that ordinance. Any remaining funds from the utility will be transferred over to the trust and used for recreation programs. We're not siphoning this off for the municipal Maserati for the municipal manager. Last item was just a note for the council's awareness that Jennifer McCulloch was going to provide the presentation, which we all had, and I really very much appreciated, and again compliment her on her efforts. Unless there's any questions from me, that concludes my report.
Great, thank you so much. Okay. Next on the agenda is public hearing. We have a public hearing on ordinance number 2022-16. Ms. Marsh.
Ordinance number 2022-16 is an ordinance amending Chapter 237 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Pequannock and dissolving the Township Recreation Utility.
All right. Are there any other comments on this from council?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. If anyone in the audience has questions or comments on this ordinance, please come to the microphone, identify yourself for the record. You guys are good? All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2022-16.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Woohoo.
All right. There are no ordinances scheduled. Were you worried? There are no ordinances scheduled for introduction at this time, so we are going to move on to resolutions for approval, and I'll ask Ms. Marsh to read each of those by number. Go ahead.
Beginning with Resolution R 2022-163 to support the Substantial Damage Management Plan. 164, authorizing change order number 1 to the contract previously authorized for the purchase and installation of new guardrail on Hillview Road from designated vendors awarded contracts by the Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council, increasing the prior contract by $25,909 from $459,460 to an amount not to exceed $485,369. 2022-165, authorizing the purchase of a 2022 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle from designated vendors awarded contracts by the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Pricing System. 166, authorizing additional funds for professional services between the Township of Pequannock and Crew Engineering Incorporated for Well 1 PFOA and PFOS treatment preliminary design. 167, approving the designated special event permit applications. That's for the American Legion Post 242 Car Show, the Pequannock Engine Company 2 Cornhole Tournament, and the Pequannock Soccer Club Tournament Soccer Tournament. Wow. 2022-168, authorizing the acceptance of a hold harmless agreement from the Pompton Plains Reformed Bible Church at 5 Misty Court. 2022-169, authorizing the acceptance of a hold harmless agreement from Anthony and Michaela DeLucia for 23 Rockledge Terrace. 170, authorizing the reinstatement of a special sewer assessment plan for 41 Brookside. 171, authorizing tax office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. And R 2022-172, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the September 8th, 2022 bill list and 2018 FEMA elevation escrow list.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments on the resolutions from the council?
Go ahead, Dave.
166, that's for the treatment, water treatment, isn't it? It's not just...
Yes, and there's a bit of a misnomer. The original proposal was for well 1. The approach the township is undertaking will be for have the treatment installed at the blending facility, but it's an amendment to a contract that was the original title of. So it's just a misnomer. It's not limited to well 1.
Okay.
And it's just for the preliminary design? It's not really for the design of it?
It's just for the preliminary design. This is
How
going
long
to
does
be...
the preliminary design take, so till we get to the design? Any idea?
I don't have an exact time frame. The goal is to have enough in place for application to the iBank to move forward with that process and then go out, and then the final design will begin for the bid package.
Gotcha, so they do the preliminary design and that lets us go out for bids?
The preliminary design was really to find what we needed to do and how we needed to do it, and then the final design will be the bid packet or construction document.
Anybody else?
I got one other comment on 165. For people that don't know, I mean, that's the first aid squad vehicle.
First aid squad chief's vehicle, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that they agreed to contribute towards that. The vehicle is definitely needed, and I thought that what we did was a fantastic gesture of goodwill.
We're so awesome.
We are.
Maybe you are. Don't loop me into that.
I'm just a hired help.
The first aid squad does a lot for this
No, they do.
town, and
they do.
I think the thing before, we didn't want to start something where we're going to replace a car every so often. The first one was given by Cedar Crest when they opened there as a gift, so it really wasn't in our purview. So we were lucky enough to have ARPA fund that we used some of that for the purchase of that vehicle, with the condition that this is what we're giving you for the vehicle. Anything else you need above and beyond, whatever you need on top of that, and they are doing. So it was, once again, it was a really good partnership with our partners.
Agreed. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, question on 164, this change order. Who kind of goes through and approves that? Just seems like 5% to move a guardrail for a gas line seems a little bit extravagant, but...
Oh, it was much higher.
Okay.
There was a lot of discussion. Yes.
Much higher is good, getting knocked down is good.
Yeah, it was approximately double when initially presented. The Director of Public Works, the Township Engineer, and I were heavily engaged with the contractor as well as Public Service, who identified the gas main, even though the initial markout was a little off.
Gas company usually is.
Yes, they're consistent. So the governing body may recall the township solicited and received $400,000 of grants. We've also worked collaboratively with the Borough of Lincoln Park for the repaving of Hillview Road or Beaverbrook Road in Lincoln Park. They had pledged a financial contribution for the resurfacing. It turned out we didn't need it, so Lincoln Park has agreed to cover any cost between over $400,000 up to an amount of $100,000. We did communicate with them at multiple levels, both verbally and in writing, prior to this being placed on the agenda for the council's consideration. So everything is working in good order.
Good to know.
All right, good.
Anyone else?
That covered my questions, but actually I have one.
Oh, okay.
So on 165, they're not going to come back and ask us for an extra $5,000 like they did on the other truck, are they?
Not to my knowledge.
One never knows.
You never know.
Is there anything
That was a
in
big
contracts
truck.
that can stop that?
No.
Yes, there are things, we had the opportunity to say no,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
and we would have never gotten
Right.
the truck.
Right, then we wouldn't have a truck. Right.
That's the problem.
So,
I think vehicles are
Love contracts.
becoming more in demand now, they're,
the world is getting more normal.
the supply chain.
I don't know.
Let's hope.
I wouldn't go down that road yet.
It's a continuum. It's a continuum.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt these resolutions?
I'll make that motion to adopt resolutions R 2022-163 through R 2022-172.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dracy?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Yes. Right, and there are no discussion items on the agenda this evening, and there are no reports or notices, so we can go right into council reports and announcements, and I'll start with Councilman DeRisi.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I got. No, never mind.
Ditto.
Hey, you like my ditto, huh? No stealing my ditto. Shade Tree Commission, they did not have a meeting, but we did get a grant to plant trees, which was very good. They talked about that 2 meetings ago, so they said, hey, let's go for it, see what happens.
In an amount that could equal
What, $50,000. So I mean, that's really good. So thank you to the commission for that. The Historic Commission met. I was not able to go. Couple points. The Eagle Scout that was building the kiosk, he built it. He's trying to work with Parks and Rec to put it in. Supposedly they try to contact the county because the county said they were going to do something and no word. So hopefully he can get his kiosk mounted so he can have his ceremony and get that done. That would be very nice. The commission will be at the hoedown again, the same as last year. The work of, I guess, over at Martin Berry House, the contract 2 is going, and the work on the roof and the chimney is going, correct?
Correct.
So that's getting done, which is good. Hopefully that'll be done shortly. And then one of the members, Mr. Jay Wansick, is doing a presentation on Frank Lewis at the library on September 22nd. So if anybody wants to go, throw that on a calendar. I think I saw a note. I just wanted to say thank you to Jean McChrystal. She retired, right? I saw that a little while ago.
18 years of service.
Yeah.
So thank you to Jean for working here 18 years. I'm sure we all appreciate it, and we're going to miss her.
She was payroll. She was very important.
You like payroll, right?
We all like payroll.
Payroll. So that's it. I know we did a bunch of paving projects over the summer, which is good to see nice new fresh asphalt down. Hopefully the rest of the council had a nice summer and enjoyed, and we're ready to go to 1 meeting a month.
I'll second that.
Thank you to Carol for putting all these meetings together, and I just wanted to say a special thank you to all the volunteers that work on the Shade Tree Commission, on the Historic Commission, on the EDC, on the zoning board, on the planning board, everybody that helps our town stay pointed in the right direction and keeps us on top. So, and then like with this Community Partners for Hope, Doug, with that Doug Cook is part of, it makes you feel good to live here. And thank you to the residents of Pequannock for letting me sit here, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, Councilman Hurd.
Thank you, Mayor. Ditto, John. You're doing great.
I like the ditto.
Oh, and to talk about the volunteers, I do agree with you on the volunteers, but I also want to say that we need volunteers. We need volunteers for all the committees. Please put in your form. We need bodies for everything from seniors to open space to, I mean, you name it. We really do need volunteers. We want to keep everybody engaged. So that's my spiel. I was getting some questions about the Pequannock Valley Rail Trail. Joe did a great job, but it was more of the why is some parts done and some parts aren't, and I just want to clarify it's because the Indiana bat restriction. So we have special bats in town that apparently live there, and we can't do anything until October 1st. I guess their real estate rental goes up Halloween, and they have to get out, but we will be finishing, or not we, the contractor will be finishing those sections. So it might seem a little odd, but that's the reason. I also want to talk about from open space. Roots to River Project is where we received and planted 400 trees. And I got to tell, it's 4 years later and they're doing great. I mean, we have 50+% survival rate. These trees, I ran past them the other day. They are poking out of, you'll see little tubes all over the place where the trees are planted in, and they're poking out. Some are 6 feet. And I even asked, do we take the tubes off? But apparently, the deer, the Pequannock Valley deer, love our trees as back scratchers. So, we're not going to be taking off those tubes. The tubes are actually designed to fall off when the trees get mature enough, a couple inches thick. So if you do see them, don't be concerned, but be happy that we have all these trees that are growing. So it's great. We spoke about the rail trail and access to Aquatic Park, but it was also brought up that the county is interested in a health course, and you guys know that I'm very involved in health. I don't know at what point that would happen, or is that something that we have to request or ask, but it would definitely be great, like we see it every year that we go down to Atlantic City for the conference, and they have all the outdoor health machines. It would be great if we could do something like that. But again, I don't know who does it, or if we have to ask something. That's maybe something Adam can ask. I'm sure it's way too early, but I just want to put it out there. Let's see. Oh, environmental. This was interesting. So I know that there's a plastic bag ban, yet the environmental committee has enough bags, 500 pounds of bags, for another bench. So here's the question. Does anybody have any idea where to place it? So we're looking for locations. So if anybody knows a location to put another plastic bench made up of 500 pounds of plastic bags, I don't know.
It's a Trex bench, and I think it's going into the community gardens.
Well, we talked about there. We talked about Panther Park. We're just looking at our options. Because this might be the last bag.
Environmental?
Yeah.
That's my committee.
Well, there you go. Would you like me to let you talk about it?
I was like, when were you at an environmental meeting?
At an open space meeting.
Oh.
It's a combination of everybody.
Okay, yeah.
We have like coffee and donuts, hang out.
We already decided that the next bench, the first two went to the library, and the third one is at the community garden.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to get any more benches because I hear that plastic bags are outlawed now. So I don't know if we're going to be able to collect them.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing it. We may still be doing it just to get them out of circulation.
Yeah. I would keep them because that would be considered like an antique, right? Maybe you could sell them on eBay. Anyway, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, First Aid Squad. I had our meeting there. Don't forget, October 1st is the Beer Fest, which also happens to be the same day that Pequannock band competition is at the high school. So it's going to be hard to split your time between the Beer Fest, and I got to tell you, I mean, they're having Doc's Hard Cider and Sam Adams Oktoberfest, and I believe it was 60 kegs.
Are they having any of this?
We got water too.
Okay,
we got water. We got it. We got everybody served. But I need you to split your time between that and two concerts.
2 concerts. Greg DeBeese's band is playing.
Absolutely.
RadioCon, is that the name?
RadioCon.
RadioCon is
From
playing.
town.
Yes, from town. And then at night at 7 o'clock is a country concert.
I thought it was in October.
Would that be country and western?
Yeah.
But either way, that's October 1st, so it would be great to go there and then walk over to the high school maybe. Uber to the high school because you do have the Pequannock Band and they are awesome this year. We've got a phenomenal ramp. I mean, it's just out of your mind. It's awesome. So we're going to be performing there at about 7:30-ish. So be there or be square. But back to First Aid Squad, they had a total of 67 calls in August, 25 were to Cedar Crest. You're correct, Greg, the base does go on at 3 p.m. as you're drinking your Doc's Hard Cider or Sam Adams. I don't know which one I'll be into that day, but that's about it. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Great job. Thank you, Ryan. All right, Councilman Cole.
I don't really have much, but I'm sorry to say that I will not be at the Oktoberfest or the high school. I'll be back in Maine for a week for work. So I'll be working there virtually, so enjoying the beautiful,
rough life.
hopefully in Maine.
You're not going to all of a sudden move there, are you? and not come
I would
back?
love to move there, but my wife says it's too far for the grandchildren.
I was just going to say, not with your son, not with your son getting married, yeah. Exactly.
That's all I have. Thank you. I really didn't have much. So.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Russell.
Parks and Rec will be at the Hoedown, just so that everybody knows. In about maybe 3 weeks, PV Park will be open to the public again. I guess they have it closed so they can get stuff cleaned up again. We're just going to have to nicely remind people there are no dogs allowed. Last year we had a problem with people actually shutting the gates so that their dogs wouldn't get out. So the gates will most
That's a
likely
big
be
no-no.
chained open, and we will, request that, summonses are issued or something is issued. Lucky enough to play in 2 golf outings. I played in the Rotary golf outing on Friday and the PBA golf outing yesterday, and both were lots of fun and raised lots of money. The street fair was also, all of us were there. It was wet, but it was there, and there was a few people, but it was the weather unfortunately did not cooperate. And because of that, the Unico had canceled their event, and it's the 9/11 Remembrance will be held on September 18th outside. Is it the same time? Or is it
Yes,
later at night?
5:30.
So it's still going to be 5:30 on Saturday. Okay.
Tell them about the bench.
And that's, we already talked to them about it.
But you got to tell them about the bench.
The bench is old news. That was months ago. Like, seriously.
We need another bench.
Like 4 months ago. And that's all I have. Thank you to all of our, as the end of the summer, the people that don't get thanked enough is DPW. Mr. Seigling does an amazing job, and all the guys at work do an amazing job. And Forrest does an amazing job with the tree, and we do thank them, along with all of our volunteers for everything, all the different clubs that they have, and Ryan was right. We need more people just to put in, I feel like I'm talking to nobody. We need more people, you out in TV land. We need you to sign up for some of our committees, because, come January when we all sit down, it's nice to have a nice bunch of people to go through and get people on these committees, get involved. Don't just only get involved when you decide that there's an issue, Come be a part of it. There's a lot of different groups for everybody. Peter has found his niche with the Economic Development Company, and he's like
raring to go.
He's good. He's on it. He's a great addition to it, and that's what we need in our groups. But thank you. That's it.
People like Frank, too.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
The man behind the camera, just so everybody knows.
Some of the stuff is going to be repetitive, but I did want to talk about, some of you might have seen, there was a social media post put on September 9th about a motor vehicle event at PV Park this Thursday, September 15th from 10 to 2. I had mentioned it a month or so ago. There is going to be a mobile unit here at PV Park for those 4 hours, but understand the real demand and purpose is for the registering for the real ID driver's licenses, which are the upgraded licenses that you need for domestic travel and going into federal buildings and whatnot. But they were by appointment only, and there was only so many slots. So the minute, it's like hosted by like Assemblyman Bergen and Panaccio and Jay Weber, and they put it out there on social media, and then right away everybody, right away everybody registered. So those slots are filled up. But there are other services that you can go and have done there in the mobile unit, but those also require registration. So I just pushed it out again on social media after talking to Assemblyman Bergen. He said, you can go for a renewal of driver's licenses, obtain duplicates, name change, address change, add a boat endorsement, add a veteran designation, register to vote.
Drop off old plates.
Drop off old plates, which a lot of people like to do, and you don't need a reservation for that. You can just go go and bring old license plates there. They said that a lot of people do that. But if you needed to renew a driver's license or get a duplicate card or get a photo ID and you're not a driver, you can get identification cards with photo IDs. But all this stuff, except for the turning in of the license plates, you would have to make an appointment, and you only have now till tomorrow at 3 o'clock to make the appointment because the event is the next day. So if anybody needs that, you can actually call. I'll give you the number because I see Peter writing down, 973-539-8113, or they can go to Assembly Bergen's email at asmbergen@njleg.org to sign up for any of those services that'll be at the event on Thursday. Okay? Enough on that. What else do we have? A thank you to the Pequannock Chamber of Commerce for hosting the Pequannock Town Fair event yesterday at PV Park. As Councilwoman Russell brought up, it was a success despite the rain. This event was formerly the street fair. They used to host that in June. It's solely a chamber event that the town helps out with and helps facilitate. But so the chamber's going to evaluate it, make improvements for next year, and we thank the chamber and all those who participated. Don't forget to mark your calendars for the Pequannock Hoedown to be held at Greenview Park on Saturday, October 15th, and that has a rain date the next day of October 16th. As was mentioned, some of us participated in the PBA golf outing yesterday at Sunset Golf Course. It was a great day and a great fundraiser. Thanks for all who organized that. And as was also mentioned, the Unico 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony is rescheduled for this Sunday, September 16th, right in front of Town Hall here at 5:30. And it was rescheduled, obviously, due to the rain. And that event is run by Unico with town support. So as was mentioned before, the volunteers are the backbone of this community. We know that, all these different organizations. And as was mentioned, we keep encouraging volunteers for committees and boards and stuff like that, but you really need to put the applications in before we do the appointments in January. You know, if there's a real important committee that a slot has to be filled during the year, we will do it. Otherwise, we have to wait till January. So between now and, the next couple of months, get your applications in for next year, because we really want to add a lot of people to the committees and get some new blood. What else? Some of the council, or all the council, probably got an email that came in late about a grand opening at Popeyes on Monday. By the time we got that, it was too late for any of us to attend. I got it, well, except for John managed to go and was the only one. So, but what happened?
Representing John.
So what happens with the big franchises like that, like they don't know when they're opening, and then all of a sudden they like rush to do a grand opening the day they know they're opening their doors. But I had talked to the owner. We are going to coordinate, that was considered the soft opening, so we're going to coordinate a big grand opening with Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce and all of the council at a later date. I know there's a couple coming up. There's a new business called Polished Pets on the Turnpike in Pompton Plains, or is that Pequannock? So that one will be coming up as well, but we'll put the dates out there in the next coming weeks. And other than that, I think that's all I have as well. Oh, I did tell the seniors, I was going to mention one quick thing. The seniors are having an annual picnic at the Senior House on September 18th. That's this Sunday, I believe, from 12 to 4. The cost is $10. And there is a sign-up sheet at the Senior House. They're also looking for new members to join September 18th, which is this Sunday, from 12 to 4, if any of the council members are around and want to stop in.
Is that the senior appreciation? I'm not a senior yet, but...
No, but I'm sure they would love to see us. It's considered the annual picnic that they have.
Laurel said something about she's doing a senior appreciation.
Is that the same thing or no?
No, that's,
So do they need to know in advance if we're coming, or just pay the $10 at the door?
you can let me know if you're going, and I can just let Gene Powers and them know.
And that's September
That's the
18th, when?
The 18th,
What time?
12. Or you might just want, maybe you don't want to go for the whole lunch, but you want to just stop in and say hi. Let me know if you want to go for the, I don't know if that's the same as the appreciation. I didn't hear that term, but, and they're also doing, I know the group disc, which is, that's called the Drop-In Senior Center Group or whatever they call themselves. That is a private club. They're looking for new members to join that. And I know that Gene Powers is resigning as the president of that group. It's called Disc 55.
But that's a private club. That has nothing to do with the township.
Correct, yeah, that's a private club, but I just had mentioned that they were looking for new members on that. And other than that, I know that for all seniors in the town, they're running a bus trip December 15th to Hunterton Hills Playhouse. And I believe they're all sold out already, but if anybody wants to look into that, the cost is $80.
You just said it was sold out.
I think it's sold out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe there's a waiting list?
There's probably a waiting list.
Wanted to go to that.
Yeah, so if anybody really wants more information on that, Gene Powers, I said that I would mention it, so that's all I have. All right. Next is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, raise your hand. No one? Okay. Next on the agenda is minutes for approval. August 9th, minutes for approval. Any comments?
I'd like to approve the minutes for August 9th.
Wonderful. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next on the agenda is closed session discussion. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2022-173, authorizing the Township Council to meet in executive session? We'll be discussing potential litigation. I can say all this, right? Litigation of Carbone versus the Township of Pequannock, matters of attorney-client privilege, and contract negotiations with the Board of Ed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, at this time, public portion